Most blues guitar players play the same boring licks over and over. I mean, I know I was guilty of the same thing. But this guy whose solo I just played, he writes the sickest blues lines, oftentimes just in that one simple pentatonic box that we all know. And I'm about to show you exactly how he does this simply by using killer phrasing and technique. Techniques like mixing alternate picking with hybrid picking and economy picking. I'm going to show you that phrasing is king, not new modes or fancy scales, but phrasing. And here's the thing, I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm going to show you exactly how to use this stuff so you can, put on a backing track right after this if you want and start using it today. We're going to take that section of the song that I just played, that solo section of his song Rain Dance, and we're going to analyze how he uses phrasing to make killer blues lines. Alright, so the first reason why your phrasing might suck is because you're probably playing straight line scales. Doesn't sound terrible, but it's just straight lines. It's not interesting, it's not new, it doesn't spark our interest. But what Sean does is he implements really cool sequences. So like, let's take this first part of this song. That already sounds so much sicker than just, just straight line scales. If you can understand the principle of what's going on here, basically we've got... Okay, so the reason why this sounds cool is because we're starting on the blues note and the sort of sequence instead of straight line is we're backtracking. So we're going and then backtracking to like 2 notes above where we just came. So it's sort of this cascading effect where you're going down the scale and then backtracking and then going down. And then he's also using this really cool rhythm of da digga da da digga da da digga da da. This sort of like trotting effect. And that gives us a cool like rhythmic element to it as well. So that's the next line. I'll play it a little bit slower. Now this is sick because it's fast, which makes it sound cool too. But again, we have this backtracking thing that he does a lot, where we go. Not to mention the cool part about this, instead of straight line, right? We could just do that. That would be straight line. But what he does is he goes right here, and then he does a grace slide from the blues note, and then backtracks. Now there's this really cool element that totally changes the phrasing, which is like which notes do I pick and which notes do I pull off, and it makes a huge difference. If these were all pull-offs, it would sound so much different. We're going to touch on that in just a second. So the first lesson is to, instead of using straight line or boring licks that you know, what we want to do is we want to spice up the phrasing by taking a scale pattern, using a little bit of a grace slide and backtracking. He does that a lot, right? That if you watch my picking hand. So instead of doing your straight line, boring stuff, try to come up with a sequence where you do that backtracking to a note, backtrack, backtrack. Use those grace slides. That's a big lesson. Boom. Another bit backtracking lick here. Boom. It's a lot faster than that, but boom. Like that's another one, very slowly. backtrack. It's like a lot of blues players that are good do this. Again, this is a cool phrase. This is a cool phrase because he's going down the scale, hitting the blues note, backtracking, and then going back up the scale again, and then skipping a note in the scale. Instead of skipping 2 notes, instead of going, he just goes from here, skips 2 notes and goes straight to that note. So very unique phrasing as opposed to just straight line scales. This brings me to my next point. Another reason why your phrasing probably sucks is because your technique sucks. And Sean's technique is incredible. It's very, very relaxed. He uses rest strokes, or in other words, economy picks a lot. And this gives him his smooth, buttery sound. If you just listen to his playing, it's so smooth. And that's because he uses a lot of this like downstroke, downstroke, a little bit of alternate picking or hammer-ons and pull-offs, downstroke, downstroke. And it gives it this really smooth effect. Do that? So much smoother than all alternate picking. So let's break down a few of the techniques that he uses. He uses alternate picking, economy picking, and hybrid picking a lot, those 3. So I think I use hybrid picking where sometimes he uses economy picking. But the idea is this, like let's just take this first lick, for example. So right there. So basically what we've got, if you can watch my picking hand, we've got pick, pick, pull off, and then we got a down pick, and then an up pick. Adding those 3 pick strokes in a row, you see how we have the attack of alternate picking, but it's much lighter and smoother than alternate picking. And this actually is a huge part of phrasing. Using like economy picking where you go down, down, instead of down up on a string. If you're going from one string to the adjacent string, instead of going down up and you go down, down, that gives it a totally different texture and attack than like alternate picking or strictly pull-offs. And so this is another trick to use, is to use specific techniques in order to get a different sound. You get a smoother sound or more of an attack sound, or if you want more of a legato sound, just use all pull-offs. I mean, that's why it sounds so smooth. I've experimented with picking it different ways and it doesn't sound as smooth because we're combining like one pull off here and there with some really smooth economy picking strokes. You can also hybrid pick. And that's what I do. Right, that's what I do, is I do a hybrid pick there, and it does give it a snappier attack, but I like that, so it's fine. But the other thing too is it makes this sort of phrasing easier when you're doing down, down, instead of having to do down, jump over the string and do up. It makes the phrasing a little bit easier because it's easier to string transition. For example, if I go down, down, I don't have to jump over a string, so transitioning my pick from this string to this string and then back up is a lot easier. Or if I hybrid pick there, that's easy too, because my pick doesn't even have to leave this string. It doesn't have to cross over to this string. It's just... I can go through the whole entire solo and show you how it sounds, but I won't bore you with that. But the idea is this. Instead of just doing all pull-offs or all alternate picking, we're strategically adding in some economy picking or hybrid picking to, number one, make it sound a different way. Mix this like smooth alternate picking sound, but it's actually economy picking, mixing that with pull-offs, or mixing these sort of snappy hybrid picks, mixing that in with it. Now, and this sort of mixture of textures gives it a really cool dynamic range. And I can't stress enough how important it is to use certain techniques strategically to give it a certain dynamic or attack that you want. And this is a big part of Sean's playing and any good blues player. Another thing that I'm constantly working on, which is another reason why your phrasing might suck and mine did, and it still kind of does, is that your articulation sucks. Articulation meaning the clarity of each pick stroke or the clarity of your pull off. I think people really their playing gets really muddy because like their pull offs are sloppy and you can't make a sound. So like on this really fast phrase that is so hard to play, honestly, with this one right here at the beginning of the song. So on that phrase, and articulation gets really hard at higher speeds, okay? So at higher speeds, so at slower speeds, the lick is. Okay, but at higher speeds, some of those pull-offs can get lost in the mix, especially this first pull-off, that one, plus the grace slide. That can get lost really easily. So most people would just go through this pattern over and over and over again. But what you have to do is you have to set the metronome at a speed that's the edge of your ability, where it starts to fall apart, where you start to lose that articulation. And then you have to pinpoint the exact articulation trying to get clearer, which for me is this pull off plus right after it, a grace slide to a pull off. So. But my advice on getting better articulation is just to work on it in very small pieces at a time. It's as simple as that. Last and certainly not least, another reason why your phrasing probably sucks and why Sean's phrasing is so good is because you don't have a big repertoire of licks and ideas. You don't have a big vocabulary. And again, that doesn't mean you need to learn more scales. You don't need to learn, you don't need to start implementing Dorian and Mixolydian. Yeah, I mean, that's great, that's fine. But Sean comes up with the most incredible phrasing just in the basic blues patterns. And it's because he has studied Stevie Ray Vaughan, people like that, John Mayer, extensively to where he knows like a huge part of their like catalog of songs. Like he has covers of so many of their songs and he does them perfectly or sometimes even better. I know that's kind of blasphemy to say. But I've never met one extremely good guitarist who hasn't said that they learned one of their favorite guitar players, like albums front to back. And I would imagine that Sean's done the same based on all the covers I've seen him do of Stevie Ray Vaughan and John Mayer and things like that. He has a huge vocabulary because he learned an insane amount of material from his heroes. And the trick is to do that yourself and start implementing it into your own playing. But again, all that's kind of crap if, number one, you're playing the same boring licks in straight lines. Number two, if your technique sucks, if you're not implementing different techniques that make your playing sound more fluid, like economy picking strokes or hybrid picking. And if you're not actively working on articulation and getting a clean pull-offs and hammer-ons and pick strokes and isolating them at the edge of your ability, it's going to be very hard to sound good no matter how much you learn as well. So as long as you do those four things, you will be on your way to sounding much more interesting as a blues player. And this is the biggest lesson I took away from studying some of Sean's playing and learning this freaking nearly impossible solo, is that what techniques you use have a great impact on how your phrasing sounds, and how you sequence your phrasing is very important too. So I just want to say thanks to Sean for being an inspiration here on YouTube. And I know he has some courses and a Patreon and stuff. I'll link that in the description. You can go check out his stuff as well. In the meantime, if you want to learn just a bunch of killer licks, like all in one shot, blues licks, you can click this video right here.